All right, I know, psychedelics. First thing you think of is trippy, drugs from the 60s and rave parties in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They have long been criminalized, but in recent years, there's been a push to study them to treat mental health disorders.
Yeah, senior health correspondent Monica Robbins explains the history of these mind-altering substances and why they may be the answer for a lot of people who are struggling.
What a long, strange trip it's been for psychedelics. Ancient cultures relied on natural substances like peyote, ayahuasca, and psilocybin from mushrooms. Over at Case Western Reserve University,
Karl Popper is one of the first Indian philosophers in the West.
Religious studies professor Dr. Deepak Sarma offers a class on psychedelics and spirituality.
People did these substances, consumed these substances with specific guides who are trained to assist in order to attain desirable cognitive states.
Fast forward to the 20th century, science discovers MDMA or ecstasy and LSD. But by the 70s, despite extensive federal research, the government begins criminalizing psychedelics.
This was a threat to the conventional, shall we say, government, for sure. And it's a real threat when people's minds get opened up and they question the structures that exist, the institutions that exist.
By the 21st century, with depression and anxiety rates skyrocketing, new research begins, using psychedelics for mental health disorders.
PTSD, depression, and treatment-resistant depression have all been given breakthrough therapy status by the FDA, meaning that the evidence is so strong that they are kind of green-lighting and fast-tracking those substances through the approval process.
In 2020, Oregon became the first state to legalize psilocybin-assisted therapy and decriminalize possession. Colorado followed. Several more states introduced legislation. Ohio's attempt never made it to a vote. Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers admitted using ayahuasca to, in his words, help support his mental and spiritual health.
I had a magical experience with the sensation of feeling 100 different hands on my body, imparting a blessing of love and forgiveness for myself and gratitude for this life from what seemed to be my ancestors.
While there is promise, there is still much more research to be done.
Just because a recreational drug has a potential effect in one area does not make it a solution for everything.
Previous clinical trials showed treatments may only require 2 or 3 doses spread over a few weeks, but they also require intense psychotherapy and at least 2 trained supervisors during the proverbial trip that could take several hours.
How are they credentialed, these allopathic guides? Do you need to take these substances to be credentialed?
Dr. Sarma is concerned for those who may have a more religious experience.
Therapist who's very familiar with, say, Christianity, how would he, she, they respond to a transformative experience of a Hindu who has what one might call a Hindu mystical experience?
Currently, MDMA is showing promise for post-traumatic stress disorder and psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression. Research shows the substances open pathways in the brain relating to memory and emotion.
So there's this term called quantum change, where it's really the pairing together of something spiritual and something insightful, and the combination of these experiences, when they happen simultaneously, might promote change in someone's experience of life.
This month, Australia became the first country to formally recognize the therapeutic uses of psychedelics, but it will not be the last.
So we're likely within 1 to 2 years at this point, based on what I can tell, for those drugs to be approved.
So Dr. Davis says psychedelic experiences often do raise a lot of very deep spiritual questions. However, at this point, the FDA is not requiring pastoral support be present in the room with patients. However, there are certain centers, such as Emory University, where spiritual guides are being involved.
It's so interesting, and I'm wondering, people are probably thinking, okay, if this is approved, where do I obtain the drugs?
Yeah, a lot of people want to know that. Now, keep in mind, these are not drugs people will be prescribed to take home. Criteria for who is a candidate is incredibly strict. Locations will be limited. And because of the need for specialized staff, the Biden administration did form a task force studying this issue. So that may play a role in whether or not this treatment would even be covered by Medicare or Medicaid. However, not sure individual health plans will cover the treatments, at least in the beginning. And believe me, it will be expensive.
I know there is processing, but would this be considered holistic?
Not necessarily. I mean, we're still talking about a treatment, and they synthesize these drugs.
Okay.
So, you know, and right now they're just trying to figure out dosing in a lot of cases. And we're, with these research things, coming up at 11, I will bring you the information on 2 research studies that are happening right here in Northeast Ohio and Central Ohio. And yeah, they're talking about LSD. So no, these are not drugs you're going to be taking home with you.
Check. Okay.
Clearly.
Good to know. Well, that's coming up tonight at 11. Thanks so much, Monica.
Thanks,
It's fascinating. It truly is.